I am Bitcoin, I'm not nervous. I'm the tech that changes what society is. I am money, I create freedom, and I'm limited, so I know what my worth is. I don't ask how high the fee is. I don't open, verifiable blockchain. Hashes and transactions, I find and I process. I verify what I'm handed, I trust what's commanded. But under the surface, I feel berserk like a keyboard warrior that's suddenly wordless. Under the surface, was Satoshi ever like, yo, I don't wanna fight big banks. Under the surface, I'm pretty sure I'm worthless if I can be of service. A bug or a hack, a line in the stack that breaks the camel's back. What breaks the camel's back? It's both of the fees that'll never stop. Whoa. Users that'll leave till we just go bump. Whoa. Give it to BCH, their blocks got bigger, and all we got was this damn ticker. Who am I if I can't scale with the bull? If I fall to payments that are slow, and they just won't go. Whoa. Fees that'll grow till it's ready to blow. Whoa. Give it to Satoshi, blockchain is stronger. See the users throw away the dollar. Who am I if I can't verify it at all? If I falter under the surface.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Bcouch live stream at Op Next, live from the MicroStrategy headquarters in the basement. No, we're not actually in the basement, but we're on the ground floor, just in the back. The conference room is through here, and yeah, I'm here with Callisti, who you probably all know, my companion Celine Dev. We put a message in the Telegram chat, so maybe somebody else will come along and check in and say hi to us, but I don't know whether that's going to happen or not. But yeah, let's just get straight into it. So Callisti, what do you think? How did you find it, day one? Well, let's start with expectations. What did you kind of expect before we came?
All right, so I mean, expectations, I wasn't expecting it to be like a huge thing, like the main BTC conference, like the one coming up in Vegas or the one last year in Nashville. It's definitely a lot more intimate. So I mean, expectations, just looking at the schedule, definitely was excited for the talks. I think it's kind of hard to tell how much, if it was going to be like heated, if there was going to be conflict, like what the general sentiment would have been. So I think my expectation was a bit of uncertainty, actually. It was a lot of, I just want to see what's going to happen. I want to, Jeremy Rubin going on first, I think really set the tone. And I think expectations that followed from that is like, okay, we're not going to like end up with like a civil war here today. And I don't think anyone really expected that, but you know, the possibility is there. This is a really contentious topic. We're trying to scale Bitcoin, we're trying to make upgrades to Bitcoin, and everybody has a different opinion on that. So I think it really could have gone any direction, and I think that the way that the schedule was set up, it was good for setting the tone, and it was good for it's just a good sequence, like from top to bottom, because now we're hearing the more contentious issues just at the end of the talks. We're talking about, okay, the last talk was just on, okay, if we do nothing to upgrade Bitcoin, you know, is that a problem? And you were just saying the very last question, I had stepped out, they're talking about, well, what is Bitcoin? And they all had different answers. So I think it's just been interesting to get everybody's takes so far.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's like, I guess, a kind of an insight into this idea of rough consensus, and you always hear people talking on Twitter about, you know, forming rough consensus, and really since Taproot has went live in 2021, which nobody can really necessarily give a great explanation of how exactly they did that, or who was, you know, the most influential. It just kind of stumbled through, and a lot of people wanted it, and it ended up happening. At that time, there, at least as far as I remember, there wasn't really too many different options on the table, right? So with the start of the day today, it was like they started, Jeremy Rubin talked about CTV, then Antoine Poinceau, I'm going to get that wrong, he talked about the Great Consensus Cleanup, Then you had someone talk about OpVault. There's been no talks specifically about OpCat. Nobody has done an OpCat focused talk,
actually.
but that's kind of in the discussion. So even just there, you have 4 different options that are kind of competing for attention. I would say that, you know, CTV and OpCat do seem to be the front runners, but then there was no talk about Cat, at least so far. I don't know, maybe there will be tomorrow. Does that surprise you?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, especially somebody vandalized the poster, but you know, Taproot Wizard sponsoring the conference today, and they're probably some of the most vocal OpCat advocates. So that is a bit surprising that we haven't really heard much about OpCat. I do also get the general vibe that people here, which is I would say primarily the BTC dev community, a lot of people who have a lot of skin in the game for real. I'm getting the impression that everybody agrees for the most part on not ossifying. And I think in that direction, people are agreeing on CTV and CheckSig from Stack being the top contenders for if we're going to upgrade Bitcoin, that's going to be the way we're going to do it. I haven't really heard anything contentious in the opposite direction. So it is a bit surprising.
Well, there was a little bit at the end though, right? Because so there was these talks at the start of the day, these 3 different options that they were talking about. And then in the middle of the day, there was kind of talks about the L2s with ARC and BitVM and almost sort of in a way the custodians panel, right? And then at the end, it was like the hardware wallets and this Don't Break Bitcoin panel that they had right at the end there that really suddenly was like the sort of ossifier not so much, but they were kind of careful to say like, oh, we're not saying never change anything. We're also not saying you can't do bug fixes. But those guys, they clearly more had the point of view like, don't break Bitcoin. Like, just if we don't change it, it's not like there's no sense of urgency there. I haven't felt any sense of urgency from that last panel or from any of the earlier stuff.
Yeah, it's like the idea that, okay, maybe we should change something, but yeah, Bitcoin will probably be fine. And do the risks outweigh the rewards? Now, a lot of the people who were presenting on ARC and BitVM, they did have a lot of comments saying, well, CTV would really help this technology. We should definitely consider it, right? But yeah, I mean, like you're saying, that urgency isn't really there.
Well, that's something that I notice from a sort of BCH style perspective is I think the BCH community feels under the gun. Like we do constantly feel like not only, you know, we're fighting for survival in the cryptocurrency marketplace, but then at the same time, it's kind of like CBDCs are coming, and I haven't heard anything about that either. Haven't heard a word about CBDCs or government capture or delay, nothing.
Yeah, the only reference to the government that we have had is, well, we did have a representative from Coinbase, head of custody at Coinbase, was speaking today. And, you know, they're really talking about trying to integrate with the regulatory environment. They illustrated some challenges that they've had with that. I had asked a question to them about, well, if Bitcoin is permissionless and you have people trying to dust attack like the Coinbase custody address, you know, does that create like any regulatory incompatibilities for them? And they said that they're pretty confident that the regulations will evolve around that and that we'll be able to retain Bitcoin's permissionless nature. I'm not sure if I share that same confidence, but I'm also not in the position that they're in to really have an informed opinion on that. So,
yeah, but that lack of urgency, I think, is driving things a lot because everybody kind of doesn't know when something needs to be done by. I mean, that's really what it all comes down to, right? It needs to be a decision. What do we want to do, and when are we going to do it?
Yeah.
And I feel like we've watched a whole day of talks, and we haven't made any progress on on either of those two things, right? Yeah. It's like people say that they need to say something about that. People talk around the issue. We've heard, basically that same thing. Oh, we need to decide what we're going to decide on, and then we need to decide it. But it's just that endless talking around the issue, right? Like because nobody has an idea of what would constitute a consensus. There is no bar, which is the criticism that the BCH community have had for a long time, and coming here and seeing it sort of happening in person, I feel like just confirms that. Like I was open-minded to the possibility that I would come here and find that, suddenly actually once you're in person with people, that it's a bit more focused and it's a bit higher signal than the sort of endless chat that goes in circles on Twitter and on Delving Bitcoin and on the mailing list and in Telegram. And it's true that the BTC community is far larger than the BCH community, but because they don't have any deadlines and because the urgency has all drained away, probably as a lack of having a mission focus, like I'm just not seeing it,
I think it's partially that, but I think it's also partially fear. And going back to, Jeremy Rubin being the very first presentation of the conference, I think there's something to be said there. I mean, he was one of the he still is one of the main champions of CTV, but this goes as far back as, 2019, right? And, and other people, in their words, right, he got eviscerated for that, right? So he's coming back now and he's trying to champion this again. He's not getting as much flack, but
even he didn't want to accept responsibility for it in that way, where he said, okay, guys, I've created a Signal group so we can discuss. It's this endless, we'll create a new group, we're going to
build consensus.
Yeah, that's right. It reminds me of that, CIA sabotage manual where it says, like, what are the steps? Number one is just constantly create new groups, make sure there's at least 5 people, make sure nobody can make a hard decision. And that's, he doesn't even want to push sort of his own upgrade in that sort of sense. He's happy to give it his blessing or be a part of it or give a talk here, but he's not like, guys, I'm releasing a client, here's the date, let's lock it in and go. There's nobody who has that kind of energy, and not even close, not even just in the whole spectrum of people. It's just wends around.
Yeah, I'm still curious about what happens tomorrow, though, because in particular, in the morning, we were actually talking to one of the hosts about this earlier. If there is anything that we could say in this conference's programming that would have been anything resembling aligned with BCH, it's going to be the talks tomorrow morning, where we have Jameson Lopp. His talk is literally titled Goldie Blocks. And then we have our friend Reardon, who we've had many productive conversations with over X Spaces. He's here, and he's also going to be giving a talk that the name is now slipping my mind, but I think that those will be pretty interesting to listen to. We'll see if maybe they're a little more action-oriented. I know that Reardon in particular has expressed to us before that he does have that more action-oriented mindset, but I do still think that there's a lot of fear overall in the BTC community of championing things too loudly because they don't want to get eviscerated the same way that Jeremy did back then. And I think people are afraid to say, well, we have consensus, because you're always going to have probably the laser eye crowd be like, well, we don't want changes to Bitcoin, and you're wrong for this, and think of Saylor and his big old stack because you're going to ruin it. Like, well, that really does add a lot of pressure to trying to create these thoughtful changes that probably could benefit Bitcoin. But if the messaging and the information asymmetry is just too prevalent, I just don't think they're going to want to be action-oriented that way.
But I don't know that you have that kind of, again, we had that final panel sort of surprised me because it did bring up a bit of that sentiment, and I think that was smart in terms of the organization of the conference to have that sort of viewpoint represented in a certain way, because if it wasn't there, it would be sort of notable by its absence. But I don't feel like talking to the people here that I'm necessarily getting a full spectrum of this, so-called Bitcoin community, the BTC community, which is, odd in a way, right? Because I understand it's not the biggest conference, and you're never, especially at the size BTC is at, you're never going to get everybody in the same room all at once. But it doesn't even feel like among the chatter here that it would get to a point that people would be afterwards, and we'll see afterwards in the days or weeks afterwards, that people are going to suddenly be like, oh, we all got together and had a chat, and really it was clear that Cat was the front runner, and let's do a timeline to lock it in. Like people said, oh, okay, well, if we're going to do an upgrade in 2025, we've got a couple more months maybe, and then we've got it, because you need at least 6 months of runtime. But then it already feels like it's going to bleed into 2026.
Yeah, I mean, they're even saying that themselves. Right?
Yeah.
It was, again, I think Jeremy this morning was saying, well, maybe 2025, but maybe not. It could be 2026. And then, well, what happens the longer that you wait? The competition catches up. ossification. You've got like the validity of that, right?
Yeah. But I mean, we saw a little bit of that with somebody even said like, oh, I think we should do an upgrade basically just to get back into the swing of doing an upgrade.
Yeah.
I can't remember who had said it, but somebody said like, oh, this would be a fairly easy sort of upgrade. Let's just do it so that we've done an upgrade and we can actually remember how to do one. Like that's one thing to be said for other chains that ship regularly. It's like any software project ultimately at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If your team is not experienced hitting the deploy button, feeling like they've checked off the tests and pushing something live, then the stakes become higher and higher to actually do it, because eventually nobody has that kind of experience or that confidence with doing it regularly. So it's like as time goes on, the bar to actually ship gets higher and higher at the same time as people's desire to do it gets lower, because people are in the meantime defecting onto other chains and just cracking ahead and building the things they want to build. So yeah, I have certainly had no insight or revelation here that suddenly there was going to be a critical mass. If I had to make a prediction, and again, we'll see tomorrow what the vibe is, but it sort of feels like maybe there's just going to be more chat, and then nothing changes.
All right, conference is over. See you in Vegas, guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. So tell me, we had the CTV stuff. Let's do them one by one. CTV, you think is probably the front runner, but I would say not clearly. It's just had the most discussion.
Yeah.
It has the most people talking about it, but it's not like, 80% of people even in this room are like clearly, like it's not like panel after panel or talk after talk. If it had been CTV, what are the things we can do with CTV? Why I want CTV, etc. That's not really
Yeah, I mean,
happening.
even like the ARC and the BitVN guys, and I think there was like one other presentation that mentioned advantages to CTV, but they all said, well, we don't actually need this. It's just going to make it easier to do what we want to do.
Yeah, that's it. And well, that's activation energy, right? For something to get activated, it would need a critical mass of like, we have to have this.
Yeah.
We cannot afford not to have this, because the incentives to do nothing are just so titanic, right? And at the end of the day, then on that panel, they just said, yeah, well, if nothing changes, Bitcoin will basically be fine, kick the can down the road, and there you go. Okay, so that's CTV. Cat hasn't had a single talk, but it's been kind of mentioned a bit. Are you feeling like that?
I think the primary mention that I have heard about Cat.
Hey, come join us.
Sure.
Join us.
Come join if you'd like.
Welcome to the stream.
I thought I would.
Yeah, be a part of it. Represent.
Yeah.
So introduce yourself briefly for the stream, people who don't know you.
Yeah, I'm Charlie Spears at C.
Oh yeah, shit. My bad.
worries.
My bad.
It's
I love
magnetic.
these DJIs.
Yeah.
I've got the
Yeah.
honey something.
Okay. You connect?
Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Check.
Oh,
check.
is the mic on?
It should be on, right? It was flashing,
Check.
wasn't it? Oh, here we go.
Do I have to hold it?
Here we go. Just talking to this.
Check. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Yeah. Check 1 2. This works.
Yeah.
Sweet. Forget
you?
what else.
Who are
Oh,
you?
I'm Charlie Spears at CB Spears on Twitter, and
Get the shield in early? No.
my PFP looks PFP looks the same on LinkedIn and everything.
Yes.
One of the co-organizers of this conference,
Yes.
under and co-founder of Blockspace Media, Bitcoin Industry Media.
Yeah.
So
How do you feel it's gone so far?
very, very positive. Got a lot of really good feedback from you guys and a lot of the people I trust in the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Yeah, well, I mean, just
Yeah.
before you came in, like, we were saying that the bar to get an upgrade in is quite high, right?
It's
And there's certainly a spread of options, right? There's
Yeah.
CTV's been mentioned, CAT has been mentioned, Opvault has been mentioned, Doing Nothing has been mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are you feeling like? Is this driving things in the right direction, or?
I am more optimistic now that we will not ossify. I think 2 or 3 years ago, I was much more naive about Bitcoin at a technical level. I spent half a decade in mining. That was my first career. I've been in Bitcoin as an enthusiast for many, many years. But I was very, frankly, black-pilled on the state of developer discourse a couple years ago. Ordinals, weirdly as it is, forced me to become way more technical about Bitcoin itself. And so I would say I'm more just gray-pilled. Sometimes depending on the day and how I wake up, like I just feel differently about it. But now that I work in media, I get to shape a lot of the discourse. And I have my opinions, and I talk about these on my podcast, but the point of the conference is really to just try to push developers to give their own perspectives. And I fell in love with technical conferences 2 or 3 years ago, and that's become like my bread and butter and focus. And I think we're succeeding in building a good tech conference beat.
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, you did last year, right? And you've done this the second time this year, right?
Yeah.
Well, you're enjoying it third time next year. Can we?
It's actually. We're doing it back at Fidelity in the fall again. So this is already handshake deal. Don't have a date. Don't have any more specifics except it's happening again in the fall. We have this lofty idea of doing it biannually, but some of it is dependent upon like the state and vibe of Bitcoin discourse. Like it's been a while since the previous soft fork, so people are kind of anxious.
Yes, we were just talking about that. Yeah, because the longer it goes, the more anxious people get, and maybe also the less willing they are to jump over that bar. So it's kind of trending in two directions, at the same time.
And the Wizards, again, they are sponsoring the conference, but I've also been a vocal supporter of OpCat. But they really did jumpstart a lot of the conversation it was only a year and a half ago. It was only like 18 months ago.
Yes.
They came out and pushed Cat. And whether or not this was their intention or not, it gave a lot of covering fire and opened the Overton window to talk about other things. And so CTV is now framed as the comparatively conservative.
Yes. That's true.
Covenant software.
Yes.
And it's kind of funny because if you go back and you look, we were talking about this off camera.
Yes.
5 years ago.
That was crazy. That was radical. Just shut it down.
Yeah. Maybe this is. I think some people have reflected on this. Maybe sometimes if you are the proponent of a soft fork, there is a bit of a sacrificial lamb.
Yes.
Maybe it's baked into Bitcoin culture to somebody's got to get pinned for something.
Yeah,
I wish that
through the wall.
Exactly.
Oh, no, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I wish that weren't the case. And maybe we can make that not the case.
Yeah, how would you go about
I have no idea.
Well, this conference is a good start.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's great we're talking because I feel, and maybe you'd agree with this. There was a bit of a how do I say after the hard fork in 2017, it was just so painful, I think, for both people. You were talking about how you guys spent a couple of years almost wandering the desert as well.
Yes. It's been a long arc, yes.
And I think Bitcoin had a similar feel where it just got really hard to talk about any changes because there was a lot of
trauma and all that. Yeah.
I'm even picking that up here today in this room. I really feel like a lot of the speakers are really trying to choose their words carefully. They're not trying to influence things in a certain direction. They're just trying to share their opinions without being okay, I don't think we need to do this right now, but here's what we could do, and here's kind of how I feel about it. But don't take this as we're the urgency thing that you and I were just talking about. And then I was talking to Jameson Lopp earlier about the same thing. You had the chain split, and there's trauma on both sides there. There really is.
Yes.
I feel like what we're seeing today, that I'm mentioning with the BTC crowd, we're feeling like we got to be careful. And then over here on the BCH side, we went through 2 additional chain splits beyond that, and then had to kind of get our community sentiment together to get realigned in the right direction. So that was a multi-year process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have enjoyed the couple of it seems like there's more touch points between Bitcoin Cash and BTC lately,
we've been trying to create that. That's not an accident.
You guys have been a little
maybe we've been doing. Yes.
They're coming around to the BCH.
We have to make some noise. We have to. Otherwise, we're just going to get ignored. We're the small. Yeah.
It's like
Hold the mic further away.
Oh shit! All right. I already have a lot of voice.
It's kind of like the Udi approach. You have to.
Yeah, you have to stir things up a little bit.
Yeah,
of course.
I get that. You're not gonna catch me on record saying this is a Bitcoin Cash aligned thing, but you will catch me on record saying I looked at Bitcoin Cash, like the history of it, at a high level recently. And I was really impressed. As I said to you guys, either both online and off camera, like I'm impressed by the developer like culture.
Yes.
Internally, and I think that's really cool. And I think Bitcoin could learn a lot from that.
Well, I mean, that's it.
We've been
We're
trying
here,
to
we're
create
here to
that
learn.
dialogue,
Yeah. We're here to learn in the same way, you know. And I think it's very obvious. Like sometimes when I say online, I'm talking to people about these upgrades, you know, and they say, well, BCH is small, so that's why you can do these things. And I feel like no, but also yes. I'm coming around to being here. You can really see how much bigger the community is, how much broader it is, and therefore everybody's trying to consider what everybody else might be thinking. You can't just really be like, okay, let's get the main people who are involved in the chat. Let's just ask them all what they think. Okay, we can kind of see where we're going. Let's do it. Yeah. Instead, it's like every new person you introduce adds more complexity of everyone else thinking what to do, and that's where the conversation is being driven, like around the custodians and stuff, because they have the huge stacks of Bitcoin, and like they said, they don't even have their own devs necessarily, so they're kind of outsourced that.
This is one thing that going to technical conferences, I thought like previously, you could just kind of go to the Bitcoin dev store and find any Bitcoin dev off the shelf and being like, okay, go build this, but that's not the case. It is an arcane science, and that's why it's so difficult to talk about developer stuff to the broader world. And I've had to spend a lot of time in the weeds talking to developers, asking questions to wrap my head around these talking points so that I can then at least do justice on like procuring the right conversations and cultivating that and making sure there's an appropriate amount of like filter for signal, but not too much. Yeah. So I do want to get back to tying a bow on the first date, but any other, like, is there any topics or questions?
We were just walking through. I mean,
giving impressions, just kind of giving our feel of okay, what are people talking about? What are our opinions on it? I mean, I guess if you were the dictator of Bitcoin, and given everything you've heard today, what are your thoughts? What would you do with Bitcoin? Would you stay the same? Would you adopt some of these changes that we're considering?
Oof.
You're on record now.
I've said this before. I mean, it would be wonderful if we could just have a plan to, like, yes, we'll do like janitorial cleanups proactively and get those done pretty quickly. That's a very obvious thing. Some of those they're not all every little thing that is a janitorial activity, consistent cleanup activity. It's not equal, but like it'd be great if we could just like do those.
Even that, it's kind of strange, you know, from my point of view, that everybody can't just say, okay, literally everybody wants this, or who is out there saying no, we can't do that? Mm-hmm. The argument is all around the concept of a fork and getting everyone on the same page. It's not the actual content of the change, you know?
Yeah. I think CTV is pretty obvious. I think CTV plus check safe from stack as a package is a pretty obvious do that. It'd be great if we could just like in the next, if we could all be like, and that'll be the start of an era of proactive, productive soft forking. I would like for Bitcoin to take one other go around at like an era of proactive soft forking. I do generally believe in long-term timeline protocol ossification. Like, I think this is probably something that is going to happen, but I want to delay that or try to prevent that from happening, because I do think that if and maybe when that happens, like, that, you don't get another chance. You don't get to like start another Bitcoin. Yeah. Maybe
we did.
Maybe I was like, maybe that's your
turn though, because that's really nuanced, right? Because we're still the original Satoshi chain, all the way back to the Genesis block.
But if you tried to split now,
probably can't go down.
Exactly.
But I get what you mean. Yeah.
Well, you're just gonna have to be poor for at least a decade while everyone dumps their UTXOs on you. You're paying an incredibly high price.
Well, I'll leave with this. Like, I had really not paid at all attention to Bitcoin Cash. I still don't really pay much attention to it. But Justice Ranvier did have. I was talking to him in person, and he did mention, he's like, well, I was like, so why are you not that interested? Why are you more interested in Bitcoin Cash instead of Bitcoin? And he's like, well, I'm most interested in privacy tech. And he's like, and I see Bitcoin Cash is actually a really good fallback in case Bitcoin itself fails. And I was like, damn, because I assign a non-zero possibility to that happening.
Yeah.
And that got me like open to, and I try to be more agnostic about other blockchains that aren't Bitcoin. I just like.
Well, there's a bit of shit talking ETH in there at the end.
Well, ETH is
There's
fun
a
to
little
punch
bit
down on.
yeah.
I mean-
It's fun to punch down on right now. It's a bit of a meme.
But that's a weird dichotomy because on one hand, I feel like they have fallen out of the conversation a little bit. Like if you go back and if you got to bounce, I know you're all running the whole conference.
Yeah.
But if a couple of years ago there was a little bit of panic. ETH BTC ratio was rising. People were really like, shit, these guys are coming. And now it's all settled down.
2017 was the most stressful year of my life because I've been in Bitcoin for many years, and I was like, and I was not very technical, and I really didn't understand the first thing about the block size war at the time. And that's actually what got me into mining the most, as I wrapped my head around like some of the core concepts in that debate. But like at that time, there was that narrative. Me as a less technical person at the time, it was like Bitcoin is the MySpace and ETH is the Facebook, and it was a very energetic time for ETH. It was very exciting.
Yes.
And I was afraid that this blockchain, which I'd been telling all my friends to buy, was just directionally right but executionally wrong.
Yeah.
And I've come around to not view that, but I think this is part of the hodler's journey. It is. A lot of people say it's just super easy UDCA, but no.
No, it's not.
No,
it's like
not.
that meme, of the guy walking up the cliff with the 1,000 different little things along the way, and then he gets to the top and his feet are all bloodied, and everyone goes, "That was easy." Like,
it's not. So, anyway, I'm really glad you guys are here. I'm certain people will listen to this and take some of my words out of context, but I'm used to being like a public figure. Like, I give less of a shit now. And I'll also just caveat, like, I change my opinions often, and I say things different ways sometimes, and I'm much more interested in building bridges and broadening the tent of Bitcoin than I am in building walls around it, because less than 1% of the world uses Bitcoin, and even fewer percent of that even transact with it.
Yes.
And I care a lot about building free and open source technology, and I think money is at the core of that. So
Well, thanks for checking in briefly with us, and to give you a compliment on your way out. Like,
Thanks.
we're here.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Great conference so far. Can't wait for day 2.
Cool.
We came. We wouldn't. There's no other BTC. Well, I guess Callisti goes on, but I wouldn't rock up to BTC stuff easily. But I'm here.
I don't intend on traveling very much, but yes, you got the conference in Europe, whatever. And
Think about it. Think about it.
I'll
Look
think
into it.
about it. I'll always pay attention. I talked to you guys. I put a lot of emphasis on in-person conversations.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I appreciate
Yeah, I mean, we like to talk a big game on Twitter, but
I appreciate
at the end of the day, it's like, hey, real connections are important, and it's not just about talking shit. We do really want to open up that dialogue and have if people are engaging in good faith with us, I'm always going to engage in good faith back. It's when you start throwing out the price chart and all the have fun staying poor and all that.
All right, you got to bounce. Yeah.
I'll see you, man. Thanks for coming.
Good chat. I'll see you guys maybe with beers.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Yeah, we got.
I've lost a couple mics myself this way.
What do you mean? Okay.
Cheers. Best of luck.
All right. Yep. Catch you up. Yeah. So where were we at? How we doing with the stream there, Jet? Have people, what's our? Have we got any comments or any?
I haven't seen any comments yet. Oh, we got one. How do you counter small blocker lies like BCH or centralized?
Well, but the thing is,
really heard
like
about it.
that's not even a thing that's like being discussed. Like, you and I are here, and we've talked to a few people, and I mean, it's been interesting, the reaction. Some people are kind of like, oh yeah, most people are basically like, yeah, BCH exists. There's not really an attempt to say that doesn't exist or it doesn't.
We've lost audio.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, we're still. Oh. That's fucking weird. Okay, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, like people, people are not trying to say like, well, I had one person say you're a shitcoiner, but like, there's not a lot of like, oh, that's not a thing, or trying to dismiss or minimize, because it's hard to do that when we're here in person.
We were
them.
also mentioned by name once. Like somebody did say the words Bitcoin Cash earlier.
I
so.
heard one BSV mention. I've heard like 3 BCH mentions just wandering through the crowd.
And I mean, Jeremy and I are literally sitting front row right in front of the speaker podium also. You literally cannot ignore us. So.
Yes.
But we're also not here to counter anything. We're just here to be here and to have good conversations like we just had.
Yeah.
So.
And to be a part of it and to learn, from our own point of view. Obviously, BCH has not done everything perfect. Otherwise, we'd be the ones with the, whatever $1 trillion market cap and sort of driving the conversation, So some of the lessons that I think I have taken from this is that, the unity and the mission is so important, because you can just lose that over time as people filter out into different things, because it's sort of an aspect of decentralization in the way that anything that is decentralized, almost like a country or something like that, once something has enough people involved, things just are the way they are, and anybody who doesn't like it,
inertia is really hard to overcome. I mean, you got to have that equal force pushing back to say, hey, if we want to move in a different direction, we got to steer this whole boat.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And you can see that here with people are already doing so many different things, or I've seen a lot about financialization here as well too. There's been a lot about loans, Bitcoin-backed loans, and like things with custodians.
I do feel like the BTCers definitely understand the value of like Bitcoin script and smart contract capabilities and being able to do these things on chain, which is why they're trying to build all these what I would call workaround technologies to accomplish that. I just really think that it's all born out of the fundamental limitation of BTC, which is the block size.
We have 2 more comments in the chat here.
Yeah.
Not questions, but a new bill in New York proposes allowing state agencies to accept BTC, Ethereum, LTC, and BCH as payment. If passed, residents could use crypto to pay fines, civil penalties, taxes, fees, and more.
Yeah.
Oh, Detroit actually just did that.
Oh.
Yeah.
And the next comment is, nice shirt, Callisti.
The Shadow Wizards. I'm being outclassed.
Let's see, I won this at Bliss last year, and today is my first day wearing it. I'm really glad that I have the shirt. I love it very much, and I was waiting for the right time to wear it, and it's definitely the right time.
Yeah. But I mean, one thing is, it really is just sort of a different world here with BTC. I feel that so strongly. Nobody's talking about PDP Cash. You don't see people transact. I mean, there's not really a lot of things here necessarily to buy. There's like some t-shirts, but there's not necessarily like merchant stands or anything like that.
Right.
But there's nothing, and it's not that this is necessarily not even on the agenda for this time, but there's not like, what about doing merchant maps? What about doing merchant rollouts? What about, I guess it's maybe just partly as a result of the focus of the conference, because I know there are people, like in El Salvador doing the Lightning Network stuff. Lightning Network also,
well, there was actually one guy in the crowd. He literally out here, Lightning Network sucks, and everyone chuckled.
Well, there was a bit of a laugh, and there was also a bit of an ooh, like that, right? But nobody's giving a talk on the latest thing from Lightning Network.
Right, it was ARC, if anything.
Yeah.
And ARC is like, oh, we're building this. I mean, like I said, it's basically a Rube Goldberg machine. Somebody else even in there said that. Well, it interacts with Lightning. Okay, well, cool. Does that actually scale Lightning? Does it actually scale Bitcoin? We're creating a new way to their virtual UTXO. So it's the UTXO sharing idea that a lot of the CTV proponents have been talking about. And ARC is, I guess, an implementation of that, it seems.
But things are that's where I feel like the thread has been lost a little bit, because if you, why do you need scalability? The fundamental aspect of scalability is to add more users. But then because it's not clear why you would need those users, just that there are some.
Well, yeah, because you're not going to buy your coffee with Bitcoin, are you?
Yeah, that got mentioned, So it's like there's not it's like there are people who are using Bitcoin, or there's people who are holding Bitcoin. And don't get me wrong, holding Bitcoin is definitely a valid use case, and saving.
I have a dollar savings account, right?
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So saving money is legitimate and all of that, right? But it's not like, the demand for these soft forks and so forth is coming from people who are like, wouldn't it be nice if we could do this? Like, nobody is making a presentation like, I run a company, I have 10,000 daily active users, and they need this. We haven't heard anything like that.
Yeah, I guess the closest thing would have been
Well, we heard it before. Charlie was saying it's a bit of an arcane science. You know, it's become a bit divorced in a big context like you would have in a company. You know, you need to have that synergy between your product development team and your engineering team. You know, it doesn't really matter what the engineers are building if it's not something that your end customers, who your customer support talks to, then they need to give their ideas to the product team, who filter that down into, you know, requirements for the devs. And it's just like, in this case, because it's decentralized and there is no necessarily customer support team, it falls on the companies in the ecosystem to provide that role, and they aren't necessarily driving that conversation, or at least not here.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was like Rob Hamilton's Mara company and probably Coinbase are the people who are representing their users the most in terms of actual demand.
Yes.
2 more comments in chat.
Uh-huh.
Enjoying the discussion, listening in from Japan, the new version of Celine rocks, and see you guys in Ljubljana.
Exactly.
Second comment. What contract / L2 stuff is being shilled as competitors to cash tokens like utility?
Well, that's it. I mean,
DLCs?
Well,
I don't actually understand what that is, but I think that's the closest thing.
Downloadable content.
No. DLCs is discrete log contracts, but I couldn't tell you much more than that. I'm pretty sure about that. But there's been really nothing about that. Like, even we're here with the giant, you know, bald Udi thing behind you there. Ordinals has been mentioned as like, oh, well, it's something that happened and it changed Bitcoin. But there's no sort of discussion of,
I guess it's
like,
CTV.
tokens or whatever.
CTV enables a very weak form of introspection in comparison to what we're doing with BCH's introspection. I think we had it backwards after they mentioned. I think it's output introspection for CTV, but then input introspection is what we have.
We have both. We have both.
Yeah. There's
TX. Is that the other one? Okay.
I actually don't know the spec on TX hash either, though.
Yeah, but there's like, well, we've been seeing it on Twitter, right? Somebody was talking the other day about wanting, you know, state carrying UTXOs, which we already have in cash tokens, but even that is too fringe to really be brought up here. And I mean, you think of like the latest version of Selene, where we've just shipped, we've got the cash tokens integration, you have cash tokens at the protocol level, you had it in the tooling and stuff, and then now we've built it into our wallet, and then we're going to have Wallet Connect, and, you know, using it with DEXs and all that sort of stuff. There's nothing like that, I don't think.
There was the mention of Taproot assets also, so apparently there's actually USDT on Taproot assets. So there's that, I suppose. If we're talking about cash tokens competitors, that might be the closest thing, I would think.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we haven't really.
Okay, so then you know the wallet presentation, the hardware wallet presentation. They were talking about, okay, well, if we wanted to do ordinals on some of the hardware wallets that were mentioned, they have to build in specialized support for that. There's not
the transaction templates, right? That's the stuff that we're building. That's like what Emergent is always talking about.
ExoStack, with the wallet templates and with Jason Dresner's work on Liboth supporting that. So they're talking about whitelisting certain transaction templates, and effectively that's kind of the same direction that we're going in.
Yeah, well, that's right. And I feel like that was once again a case where I was getting the sense of like, oh, okay, we front run this. We front run it again, you know, but we've got that stuff already cooking, and then that will then come into vogue as like, wow, we really need that. But that will only happen probably a couple of years after we've already shipped it and we're incorporating it into products, you know, because to win back that market share, we have to deliver actual products and services. You know, we can't just coast on network effect. And the network effect is definitely incredible. Like, you can feel that here. This is not necessarily like a huge event, but there's still plenty of people made the journey and rocked up.
It seems like it's a comparable size to Bliss, maybe a little bit bigger.
I think probably a little bit bigger. Yeah. I mean, Bliss was we had about 45 people in attendance. This would be at least
I think it's less than 100.
Yeah.
Somewhere between like 60 and 100, it feels like. I haven't done an actual count, but
Yeah. So, do you have any other reflections on sort of the day one talks, or what we might see tomorrow with the maybe the more BCH related stuff? Is that going to be
I feel like today was a temperature gauge in a way. I mean, like I was saying just a little bit ago, I think there's a lot of fear. I think there's a lot of hesitation. I think people are really trying to choose their words carefully. I think tomorrow the topics themselves will be a bit more contentious, especially like I was saying, the few talks in the morning, particularly from Lop and from Reardon. I think that will be where there might be a bit more discussion. We're going to actually dive into the block size thing a little bit. And I know that that topic makes people a bit uncomfortable in the broader Bitcoin community, just because, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of trauma on both sides of that chain split. And also, I don't even know if it's viable or possible for BTC to actually increase their base block size. As far as I've read in the code of Bitcoin Core, looking at the pull request and like for SegWit, I am not totally convinced that they can even do that without exacerbating like the ordinals problem, where you can just put more crap on the chain through the witness discount.
yes?
So I'm
Well,
really,
if they really wanted to do it, maybe they could find a way. But then then it comes back to they can't even do a hard fork to clean it up. It would
Yeah.
have to be
then it has to
another
be soft forks.
Yeah.
And then also
There's been no discussion. Well, there's been some discussion really about hard forks, and again, that sort of misnomer that people think a hard fork is equivalent to a chain split.
Right.
That was kind of mentioned, but yeah, people just sort of conflating hard and soft forks. But anybody coming here to say like, guys, let's do a hard fork to like great consensus cleanup or something, that would be a non-starter. Like, you wouldn't get anywhere with that.
Maybe that'll be a good question to ask tomorrow, just to prompt it. Depending on how the talks go, it's okay. Well, if we're talking about building consensus, what is the adverse reaction to hard forks? I mean, we do it all the time, every year,
Yeah.
right? And we're not having any problems. Coinbase upgraded their node to support whatever the latest version is, or I'm sure all of these other larger entities are, right? We have the chip process and the document. They're starting to emulate that, right? They have their wiki.
Well, we
on
saw that
Covenant.
graph. That was in one of the talks of the green and the red dots. But again, it just didn't attack the problem directly in like the terms of, look, here's what people are saying. Let's fill out everybody else, or a number of other people on this sheet, and then like let's go for what. There's no bar. Like
Cypherpunk's right code. Cypherpunk's right code. So where's the code? Show me the code. Now, I know that there are some people on the BTC community that we've spoken to, like say Moonsettler, who we just know is really just angry. He wants to make this happen. He wants to just write that activation client, say, we're doing it, we're going, I don't care what anybody thinks, we're just going to go.
Yeah.
Right now, we're not really getting that energy here today, and I think that that's
No.
actually important to note, because it's like you're saying, we're not action oriented right now. Where there's a lot of talk about talking, and I would, to their credit, say that it is a lot more concrete than I would say it was maybe a year or two ago even. I do think that urgency is building for them as competition is starting to catch up, and as people are starting to realize the deficiencies in BTC. We're starting to see, oh, well, how come the fees are so low right now? How come the transaction activity is so low right now? It's not enough to just say, oh, well, we're just all transacting on Lightning, because we all know that that's not true.
Yes.
So what's the deal? And in my opinion, it's because the user experience is not great. Somebody on stage did mention that. Okay, well, maybe people aren't using Bitcoin because it's like not great to use. That was mentioned one time, right? And that's personally how I feel about it.
Well, I agree with you that to some extent we're seeing some introspection, and like, for instance, Charlie coming here and talking to us, maybe we're helping to bring that in a couple of cases. And of course, I'm going to say that because that's I only know the conversations that I'm in. I don't know the conversations that I'm not in, right? So it just feels like maybe there is some small, some degree of introspection happening in that sense, that the BTC community are thinking, well, we might have to change things up or do something differently. But it's going to be a hard road because by definition, people stick with what's working. And so it feels like the influence in BTC grows in proportion to like these large custodians. They've got a fat stack of Bitcoin. And then one of the panels today was kind of asking them, what do you support? And the answers were kind of like, well, we don't really care too much, but there was no like, we've got the coins, so we're heavily invested in the outcome, but at the same time, we're just kind of not going to, take the initiative in that sense. So you have a bit of a crisis of leadership where the devs have different ideas, and then the custodians are the one with maybe the financial muscle or the clout to push that, but they kind of want to be hands off. And then there's not necessarily a unified grassroots movement for any of the other alternatives.
Yeah, I mean, I guess how could there be if they're not focused on the common person?
That's right. Yeah.
In the last talk, one of the questions from the audience was, if the Bitcoin fees are $100, how come you say that that's okay? And the person who answered that question was like, well, I don't necessarily want that to be the case, but I just feel like Bitcoin would be fine if it was. And I'm just over here like, there's no way I'm ever going to pay $100 to make a transaction of any kind ever, period. Even if I was saying like buying a car or something, okay, I'm going to drop 10 grand on a car. Am I going to spend an extra 100 just to make the transaction? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just think, again, it's all very hypothetical because it's like people are realizing that they realized there was that one slide about the mempools being like wrecked. There's not a lot of transactions in the mempool, so fees are low, which then got kind of celebrated as like fees are low, so BTC is working. But then on the other hand, it was kind of like fees are high, or it would be fine if they were high. And nobody really knows which one it's going to be because there's not a consistent policy. It's just if fees happen to be high, then they're high, and if fees happen to be low, then they're low, and everybody just uses it.
Yeah.
Like what other product would operate in that way where the experience was just completely unreliable and the community just worked around it in a sense, rather than like the unpredictable element.
Yeah, I can't think of any. I'm like actually trying to think of a devil's advocate kind of counterexample, and I mean, when the user experience is not good, the users are going to go somewhere else where it's better.
Yeah, and a large part of that is just consistency. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, we've been going for a little while now, right? Okay.
I just saw Reardon walk by, so I almost want to see if he wants to come in.
Jump in. We'll see. We'll see in a second.
No, yeah, he just went to the bathroom. So hopefully we'll see him. We'll see if he wants to come in now. There was something I was just thinking about. It'll come back to me. It was about the fees.
About the fees, the high, low fees. People will pay high fees. People won't pay high fees. Well, they'll just move to alternatives. Now there is such a thriving market of alternatives, right?
Yeah, and I guess going back to the whole layman like common person thing. It was about like ARK. Okay, so if the fees are high. And you have these shared UTXOs, and you still, it's the same problem, right? Okay, you have Lightning, you have ARK, you still have to make that on-chain transaction, and you still have RBF. So let's say we're past the ARK UTXO expiry period that was just explained to us, where if you're not online at the right time, you can get rug pulled. That sucks. Okay, now let's say you're online at the right time, but then on top of that, the fees are super crazy. Hey, Reardon, do you want to get in on this?
You want to be, hi. Yes. Come join us.
So the fees are super high. You're now in this fee auction, and I need to, make my redemption transaction, or I need to make my Lightning close, or anything like that. Well, if I don't have that option because the fees are so prohibitive to me doing that, and I lose my money, that sucks. That's horrible. So I just don't really see how we can reconcile that.
Well, I mean, that's where the energy is going, though, and it's certainly like that. ARK talk, I was really like racking my brains there. Like I was like, I'm gonna have to watch this a second time to make sure I have all of it. So the technical join us. So the technical element of it, I thought was impressive, but then I was kind of like, yeah, I don't know if all this complexity is the enemy of functioning software, right? So I was a little worried about that element of ARK. Anyway, hello, welcome to the stream. Hi. Introduce yourself a bit for our audience.
Yeah, I'm Reardon. I do Bitcoin things. I don't even know what exactly I do in Bitcoin these days, but I definitely do Bitcoin things. I agree.
Yes.
Although, did you watch the Bitcoin or the BitVM talk as well?
Yeah.
Which one do you think is more complicated?
Well, the BitVM talk, the ARK one was complicated, but I understood what they were going for because I thought, okay, if you had this all integrated into enough wallets, you could conceivably have billions of people transacting peer-to-peer cash. That I understood. The BitVM part, I was just kind of like, okay, this just seems like another Ethereum L2 type of setup. There's a bunch of complicated nonsense, and then you would just somehow have people transacting somewhere else, and then every so often you would settle it onto main chain. That's the idea, right?
That is the idea. Yeah, I mean, I think to go even a little kind of higher level on BitVM, the idea is that you'd have a kind of infrequent settlement. Have you heard how Liquid works, where there's like the infrequent settlements, and then you swap otherwise? Yeah. That's what the BitVM people are looking at. They're looking at you infrequently have kind of LPs who are going to actually do the settlement through the BitVM, and most people just swap back and forth like you do for Liquid. So yeah, I'm not super enthusiastic about BitVM, although Arc, I would say, well, it looks complicated. I would say it's probably less complicated than a lot of the contracts you guys have on Bitcoin Cash. It takes some time to digest it, and it's also gone through enough iterations that, like, if you try to understand all the different versions of Arc, you're going to get pretty snowballed. And Stephen went through like 3 different versions of Arc.
And then he was adding another one. He was saying, oh yeah, and then we're going to fix this, we're going to tweak this at the end. Yeah, so it's like, in a sense, that's good. It means the state of the art is advancing.
It's advancing
really
very fast, yeah.
And I think conceptually, like, it makes sense. Okay, I saw what they were going for. I saw the setup. I would say, to answer your question, Arc definitely seems way less complicated to me than BitVM does. BitVM, I understand what it's supposed to do, but the implementation went right over my head completely. First off, how are you spending those zero sat UTXOs? I didn't understand that. The whole setup with like the redemption transaction, and then like all these like time lock things, and we got to like wait 5 weeks for like verification. I was like, what is this?
Yes, exactly. I think many of us in Bitcoin feel similarly about BitVM. I'm also, and I think Steve Schmitty kind of said this, like, I'm enthusiastic that they are building this stuff because it just shows a certain level of ingenuity and mental illness. But no, it is genuinely good because they're like, okay, Robin and Linus had this idea that you can emulate any program in Bitcoin using gates that you build into a massive Bitcoin script and a massive Taproot tree. And they're like, yeah, let's go build that.
Well, one thing I notice, is that the BTC community is becoming very good at making a lot out of not much, basically, right? Like, you see that with the ordinal stuff, which got mentioned, BitVM, Arc. It's kind of like, okay, we only have so many tools, but we can still make like quite a lot out of it. And that's very actually impressive, you know? It goes to show how much brain power and energy there is in the scene, and that's obviously where we're coming from in terms of like, look, if you guys just add better tooling plus that energy, and the capital is also there, you can see like it would just take off, you know?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's why, frankly, love the guys hosting this conference, and I think it's such an important thing to be doing, to really put the work in to make even a few more tools available. And I've been saying this basically for years now. If we get just a few more tools into Bitcoin, it opens up so many possibilities because people are so inventive in how they use them.
Yes.
Yeah, there was somebody on stage who had mentioned, well, you know, we got to get really creative with these constraints. It can be an inspiration in that way. And I mean, really do have to give kudos where it's due, like the fact that the BTC devs can work under those constraints and come up with, while they're complicated, they're still like interesting and cool and potentially useful. If
potentially useful, yeah. Yeah, the other thing that I'll say there is that people like the BitVM folks, they also serve a very valuable purpose, because one of the things that Bitcoiners got into this really, I mean, it's just the wrong attitude, this gatekeeper guarding you're not allowed to do that on Bitcoin attitude. And I mean, I'm sure you guys know that, obviously. And when BitVM folks come and say, no, actually you can do anything on Bitcoin, it basically breaks that idea. And so people, it's been now a couple of years of people having to cope and then seethe and then cope and then seethe with the fact that, no, you just can't stop people. They're going to do it. And so then the right thing to do is to make how they do it better, less harmful, more effective, et cetera.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we saw that almost in the panel at the end there, because it was kind of like, haha, Ethereum's just dying and out of relevance. But then it was like, no, but we're going to do all the smart contracts and we're going to figure out ways to make it all work. And there's this kind of weird duality between like, we don't want to be like the rest of crypto, but the ideas are still leaking in there around the edges, you know?
Yeah, and I think there is still kind of some important distinctions between, let's say, Ethereum and Solana versus Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, where Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash are fundamentally building money systems. We're not trying to build application systems. And there are going to be applications that you build around money, whether that be Arc or cash token based things, or whatever you build, but there is a difference in the basis, and that's reflected in the fact that there's UTXOs, right? Because UTXOs are cash-like things. You have a bearer instrument, it's a UTXO. And so there is that difference, and I think that's where some Bitcoiners get very confused. Like, we're going to be like Ethereum if we have better tooling. No, you're not going to be like Ethereum because you're not an application platform with accounts. You're still going to be a cash-like system with scripts, and that's different.
Yes, well, they're technically different, but then it comes to the whole vision part of it, right? Like, I thought one of the most revealing was just that final question at the end. Like somebody said, in 2017, I felt like I knew what Bitcoin is, and now I don't. Can you guys explain to me, each of you, what you think Bitcoin is? And 5 different guys got 5 different answers, and none of them were P2P cash. So what do you make of that? Is that just a natural consequence of having such a large community, or is it that there needs to be more work done on the vision? Perhaps is that why it's hard to get an upgrade, because you need an upgrade for something, and so people are trying to pitch like it's moving things in this direction, but some people don't agree with that.
Man, that's a good question. To me, I actually said to the person I was standing next to at the time, Bitcoin is fuck you money.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a strong opinion on whether we focus on the cash-like properties or the payments or the long-term store of value property. Like, I don't care. What I care about is that it remains fuck you money, that I can do what I want with my Bitcoin. And so I get very frustrated, and I think a lot of other Bitcoin developers frankly do, when someone's like, I don't want people to use Bitcoin like that. No, the only time you get to say that is if it genuinely risks the stability of the system as a whole.
Yes.
You don't get to decide how other people use their Bitcoin. That's the entire point of the system.
Yes. Well, it's been, certainly enlightening to see. And we talked before about I don't feel like the ossifier side is really represented here.
Right.
But I do feel like that is an element of the BTC community. What's your take on that? Is that just, there was that panel at the end as well, are they just not showing up to this conference to put in their point of view? Are they, somebody's told me, just a loud vocal minority? And then, once you filter out all the Twitter chat, there's not really as much appetite for that as it seems to be. There's got to be some element of that in there. It's not coming from nowhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a default position that people take out of fear. And that fear, they get the fear when they don't see strong development leadership.
Yes.
Yes, and so when we see better development leadership, which we're just, I would say, starting to build kind of a core group of Bitcoin developers who have both the technical and social strength to do development leadership, that will dissolve the fear, and those ossifiers will suddenly be forkers.
Yeah.
Right? And it's going to happen so fast, we're going to have whiplash, because they don't have a reason. They just feel afraid.
Yes. Yes. Well, that just about summarizes it. Yeah, I think to I don't know. It's just been kind of interesting for me to see on the ground. How do you feel the conference has gone today, though? Like, what were you hoping to get out of it? Maybe you're more on the CTV side. Do you think that that's being sort of fulfilled in terms of people's interest towards it, or not?
I think it has a good energy. The conference is great. I think these guys organized just a great conference, really keeping it focused on technical talks with the good side conversation areas. I had great side conversations about CTV and CSFS out here, or as you guys call it, check data sig. Doesn't matter, same thing. Yes, I had great side conversations. The talks were good. If anything, the one challenge, like I know why they wanted to have kind of Jeremy be the opener.
Yeah.
The guy is 7 times too smart, and it makes it very hard for like kind of as an opening. Everyone's still waking up, getting their coffee in their systems, like, whoa, what did he just say?
That slide where he had all the like S and D or whatever, and I'm like looking in the key, trying to like put together what point he's making.
Like, I've written a lot of Bitcoin scripts, I've written a lot of code, and I struggle so much with Jeremy's slides sometimes. So that was maybe a mixed bag. I get why they put him up front, because he is the originator of CTV. He's been working on this for literally more than half a decade. So he deserves that spot, and then I think someone should maybe write speeches for him, and or something. I don't know.
Needs a translator or something. Yeah.
Well, yes, get a translator up there. That would be great, actually. If they had a co-presenter with Jeremy to translate and gave it like an hour slot, because there was so much like that. If I had been up there with him, or if Stephen Roos or someone else had been up there with him, that we could have expanded on.
Yeah, honestly, maybe that should be part of the strategy to get upgrades into Bitcoin. I think that's one major thing is, if people can digest the information and understand it more on like a layman level, and that fear can kind of evaporate a little bit.
You need a dev plus an advocate, like a combo. I mean, that's interesting.
What I'm trying to do, basically.
Yeah, well, that's right.
I think you're doing a good job so far.
Yeah. Well, you seem to be moving the ball here. Like we're seeing that, right? CTV, we said before, we think probably the front runner. Mm-hmm. There was no OpCat talk. I don't know if that's going to be tomorrow or maybe not, but like, OpCat is getting discussed. It gets mentioned, but nobody's like, we're doing OpCat.
Yeah, nobody's pushing
I'm the OpCat guy. Here's why we should have it.
Yeah, I talked to the Taproot Wizards about that a little bit, because they were kind of the people behind Cat for a while. They said they've basically been busy with other projects for a bit, but they're hoping to relaunch their efforts on OpCat. So I'm very curious to see what that looks like from them. The Taproot Wizards, they have great engineers over there, and in some ways actually similar to what the VM guys are doing. They're showing that if we put OpCat in Bitcoin, people are going to build all kinds of crazy protocols, and they're going to be complicated. And usually, you said complication is the enemy of security, and so that's in a sense. I wonder to what degree they're trolling, especially based on who their leaders are. When they push for OpCat, it's entirely possible that they are exactly trolling us to do work on other opcodes so that we don't do OpCat. I don't know what the reality is.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's sometimes just about shifting the Overton window, and maybe in the end, if CTV gets through, then they'll just say, all right, job done, good enough. And like you said, getting people over that fear, because if Taproot to now has already been 5 years, it was recently more than the time between Taproot and SegWit. Right. Well, then even if an upgrade got in now, unless the pace massively sped up, it means the next one wouldn't be until 2031, right? So you're basically, and then by that point, are you ossified? Like, have things just gone too far? I think about that a lot. So I don't know if you have any thoughts. Like, is the idea to spur? We just had Charlie on here before, and he said he was hoping for sort of a renaissance, like a surge of upgrades, and then kind of ossify. That's what his ideal situation was.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said for Bitcoin, the right time to do any specific upgrade is when it's ready, and neither before nor after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, it's actually funny. We've all been saying that, CTV and CheckSig from Stack are kind of ready upgrades. That is true. But then literally today, as we're talking, as we've gotten more people interested in CheckSig from Stack, in CTV rather, and they've taken a closer look at it, there actually are potentially better ways to do CTV in Bitcoin now, because CTV was designed before Taproot. Yeah. And so now it may make sense to do CTV as a Taproot only opcode, and then you can optimize it better there. So we might decide to say that CTV isn't quite ready right now, and we make like a 15-line code change, I think was what I was told, and then re-review it with that, and then go forward with that, because it tightens up the upgrade. One of the things that's been a challenge with certain people in the Bitcoin space is adding anything to legacy script, because Bitcoin went through all this work to do SegWit and then Taproot. Why are we still adding features to legacy script?
Fallacy almost, but not exactly. It's like, if you're on a good path, why change it? Yeah.
Right. We should be adding the upgrades to Taproot, and like I said, CTV can be a tighter upgrade if it's in Taproot only, rather than also supporting legacy script.
Do you think there's any drawbacks or harm that would come from just doing it on legacy script, or even on both legacy and Taproot?
The drawback is just waste of chain space. So CTV as a legacy opcode that's upgraded as a NOP upgrade requires that you put the 32-byte hash in your locking script to then verify, versus if you do a template hash opcode as a Taproot op success upgrade, you don't have to specify the hash if you don't need to. You can just get the hash of the transaction instead.
I see.
So that saves 32 bytes anytime you don't need to pre-specify the hash. So is that worth it? It depends on the scenario. It depends on how important bytes are. Obviously, in Bitcoin right now, we have relatively limited byte space, and so maybe it is worth it.
Yeah, I guess the witness discount comes into play there also.
It does, yeah. So it's 32 witness units, not 32 transaction units. But anyway, we're actually going to have, I know, 2 talks tomorrow that are going to be about whether we should be increasing the block size on Bitcoin for real. So I'm also very curious to see how those talks go and how they're received. I think.
Do you have a
hopefully you guys
prediction? What do you think?
I actually don't. I mean, the guys who are going to be talking about potentially increasing the block size are very respected in Bitcoin, and I'm very, very curious on their front. I don't have a guess as to how the reception is going to be.
And I was saying to the stream just a little bit ago, it's your talk and Lop's talk that I'm very excited for tomorrow. Do you want to give us like a little sneak preview of what you might talk about?
Sure. The short sneak preview of what I want to talk about. Actually, I'm not going to do half the talk. I'll just do the second half. So the first half, if you want to check that out, I did a podcast with Charlie Spears like a week ago. It covered basically the first half of what I'm going to talk about. The second half that I want to talk about is going to be avoiding magical thinking. And to some degree, I think we heard some magical thinking today. People wanting an upgrade that does exactly the magical thing to solve this problem without kind of looking, is that a problem that we even have an idea of how it might possibly be solved in a blockchain system? They're just like, I want this problem solved. And they're not even like, I'm not going to look at an upgrade unless it solves my problem. And I think that's an attitude that has been harmful to Bitcoin over time. Because I've had that response from people when I'm talking, let's look at CTV. They're like, well, no, I don't look at CTV because it doesn't solve this problem. Okay, but nothing solves that problem. As far as I know, that problem is a fundamental, unsolvable problem because you're working in a UTXO-based blockchain. So why don't we talk in reality instead of in Magic Land?
Yeah.
So that's the second part of my talk.
Do you think that some of that stems from kind of like the kind of a lack of alignment in like what is Bitcoin, right? How should Bitcoin work? What should Bitcoin do? I feel like there's separate camps kind of championing these things, I suppose.
I don't think that's where the magical thinking comes from. I think it comes from people that have tried to build things on Bitcoin and gotten frustrated with just trying to build. And as they get frustrated, they kind of imagine a world where they're not frustrated and it has this problem solved. And so I think if we'd had a more kind of steady pace of upgrades in Bitcoin, we might have fewer frustrated people. And if we have fewer frustrated people, we have fewer magical thinkers.
Yeah.
Well, it would be easier to believe that, oh, okay, my thing is not ready now, but potentially in the future, a solution will be coming where if no solutions are coming for anything, then you kind of by default despairing of the change that I need is coming. Right. And I mean, I thought it was really interesting that screenshot got up there of the green and the red squares, from the Covenants wiki. I've been fascinated by that because that is sort of like a proto chip process that we have on BCH. Do you think there is a critical mass of names that could have been on that slide or green things all lined up in one column that everybody, like I when that came up, I thought, oh, are we going to see sort of, let's be specific about this. Look, these people are all here. Some other people also are in support of it that are maybe here in person. Boom, like, what are we waiting for? But that kind of didn't happen.
I kind of think it would be cool if we somehow were able to take an anonymous poll of everybody here.
Yes.
And we were able to say,
on Telegram, just about.
Yeah, I guess we could.
Just throw it up in the
so if we would say, if CTV were to be activated arbitrary date, let's just say August 1st, right?
Yes.
Of this year, would you be for or against that?
Right.
Yes.
And let's just see what everyone says.
Tightly scoped poll.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could
I feel like that would be really interesting.
Yeah, maybe we should put that in the Telegram group and just see what happens. Let everyone chip in, bit of sentiment analysis. Maybe we can do one as well. Should Bitcoin increase its block size?
Yeah, what does Polymarket say about it?
Before and after, yes. Let's see if James and Jameson can shift people's minds.
Yeah.
A good question.
This is so weird for me because I think like a lot of the talks I'm in support of, but like I've had this bitter taste in my mouth about BTC. And I'm like, I don't like if you guys do some of this and it gets more adoption, then if there's a week where the fees aren't $75 plus, I could see myself using BTC for the first time in 6 years, 7 years. But I don't act like, yeah, I'm hopeful to see see this stuff, but I just don't see it happening, and I'm wondering if that's the bias of being in BCH since Fork Day.
I mean, I think we're rooting for BTC overall, and I think even if BTC made these upgrades, I would still personally be aligned with BCH because I think the upgrades are just better, and I think that our vision is just better, but that's my biased opinion.
I think the thing for me is like adoption. I just want to be able to use the fucking money in my day-to-day life.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to make compromises. I think BCH, I'm not holding any other coins, right? I think there's that. Yeah, if there's still that. Well, we are Bitcoin. Like,
Yeah,
He's got the philosophy. It's in there. Well, but it's interesting because as you say that, I was just reflecting on like, okay, let's do a hypothetical where, okay, all this chat happens. Everyone says, great, we're on the same page. Next 12 months, great. The consensus cleanup goes in, CTV goes in, a block size increase to 4 megabytes goes in. Maybe there's some sort of fix to ordinals. There's a bit of a renaissance, and then I'm kind of like, well, maybe they're not doing too bad over here.
I guess
the problem is that's just such a long jump for me to believe is going to happen.
I think it's the same thing in reverse for them.
Yeah.
Like really, okay, so BCH shipping all these upgrades, and we're all just like, hey, we're doing all the stuff that you want, and they're just like, well. No, because I'm on this side and I don't want to flip.
And we've got a lot of work to do as well, like in terms of, I think if we had more compelling traction with on-chain transactions and we had a couple more apps that were really kicking off, like power is, wasted if you don't apply it, right? Force has to move in a direction. So having a lot of upgrades is not in and of itself enough.
Yeah.
And that's where I think where our advocacy is kind of lacking, is we need to be able to prove, okay, maybe we don't have the network effect, maybe we don't have the capital investment, maybe we don't have the mind share, but these upgrades are good. And the proof now is partly coming in the form of the BTC guys wanting what we've already made. So it's kind of vindicating in that regard. But even that's still not enough, because it doesn't matter if we've done the right thing and there's no payoff. It doesn't matter if you bet on the right poker hands and the cards just don't fall in your favor. So it is beholden on us to deliver some kind of viral apps and traction that just makes it undeniable, that BTC is not going to get its act together and people should switch.
Well, even then, beyond that, it's like the unified total Bitcoin community, including BTC and BCH, we're all up against fiat.
Yes.
Right. So if we're not outdoing fiat, we're still going to lose.
There was nothing about CBDCs we said earlier as well, too. That's not been a topic here. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's almost like it's the known enemy, and we don't want to talk about it so much as we want to just you don't win a race looking backward.
Yeah.
You win a race by looking forward, by going forward, doing your best.
Yes.
I think that applies to BCH, BTC.
Yes.
The other thing that I will say, I mean, you said it, Khaleesi, that we're the unified Bitcoin Cash world is trying to create better money for people because we want people to be able to use their money the way they want to use their money. Like that's just such a fundamental human rights issue. And I may have said this to you guys before, but I'll say it again. I think it's very important. Bitcoin, the chain that has the greatest economic value right now, the greatest work right now, is such an important thing in the world. And you guys have such an incredible developer community and kind of tooling building. Like there's you have developers building apps. You also have developers building tools for app developers.
Yes.
And my opinion, and I'm sure you won't be surprised by this, is that if that energy was working on tooling for Bitcoin BTC, we have a better chance of winning than you guys working on Bitcoin Cash and us working on BTC. And I don't think the same applies if all the developers that work on BTC right now went to work on Bitcoin Cash, that wouldn't improve our chances. But if all the developers work on Bitcoin Cash right now went to work on Bitcoin, it would improve our chances.
Why not?
Because Bitcoin Cash doesn't have a problem with developers. Yeah.
There you go. Maybe that's
well,
it.
We definitely need more developers, that's for sure.
But it's not your fundamental problem, right?
Yeah.
Your fundamental problem, as you said, is adoption and kind of getting apps that are, or getting people to shift over and start using the coin economic ways so that it starts accruing value.
Yes.
Bitcoin has the value. We don't have the developers building amazing dev tooling. And so I'm pretty positive that in terms of moving the needle on actually killing fiat, if a bunch of Bitcoin Cash developers came to Bitcoin and started building tooling that's a lot better than BitVM on Bitcoin, it would move the needle on winning against fiat. So that's part of why I interface with you guys. Like I appreciate the development you guys do so much. I want the tooling to come to Bitcoin so badly.
That makes a lot of sense. I think it also just unfortunately begs the question, okay, well, why aren't BCH developers doing that? And of course, that's a whole rabbit hole in itself that we don't have to get into right now, and all of the viewers already know the answers, so it doesn't matter. But,
but now I think it's important though, because like you say, looking forward, forgetting about the past, is people are coming to crypto today and they are looking at BTC, BCH, Ethereum, Monero, whatever it is, we're still
kind of on a level playing field.
They're still picking every single day what project they want to work in, right? And so that's something that everybody needs to be cognizant of, because you just cannot ignore those people over time. They just add up if you're doing a better job of attracting that talent, because there is such a limited pool of it, right? So that's maybe something for each of you guys to give a thought on, like what does your favorite chain need to do to be in the lead to attract that talent?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to your point, I guess I would agree. We don't necessarily have a protocol development problem at all, or a tooling problem, really. I think we're doing really great on that regard. We have a product development problem.
Yes.
We have an entrepreneur problem. Like, we don't have people who can make really great products who are going to drive that adoption, and we don't have people who are business minded to make those products profitable. That, I think, is our biggest lack by far. And so BTC has all this capital, has a lot of these like business-minded people, a lot of these financial-minded people. So it's like if we could trade,
can we get these pieces?
like if we could get the best of both worlds here, how do we do that? Do we make a third chain? Do we all just?
Oh God, the XKCD comic on
that. I don't know. It's just an interesting thought experiment, and I feel like that's also part of the reason that we do try to build these bridges and have these dialogues, because I do still believe that we can learn from each other in that regard. And whether it results in people converting to one chain or the other, or maybe even running both at the same time. That's another thing I was talking to Lop about. I mean, there's nothing stopping anybody from running both Bitcoin Core and Bitcoin Cash Node on the same system and using both chains. I could have a multi-coin wallet, or even a Bitcoin-only wallet that is just BTC and BCH. Just like with like Liquid and Lightning, right? Okay, you have BTC wallets that have those other two, right? So why not, right? We could have it all if we were more collaborative. And I guess it really is, okay, well, why aren't BCH people working on BTC? Why aren't BTC people working on BCH? There are those roadblocks that exist. I think building these bridges helps to elucidate the common denominator there. Hopefully, more talks like this, more conferences like this can help us commingle a little bit like that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, as you guys know, like when I implemented and wrote the checksync from Stack, I referenced both Bitcoin Cash and Liquid to do so. And Bitcoin Cash is where I got more of the actual kind of text for the specification from, because it had the better, more clear spec.
I did really like Jeremy's nod this morning. He did say check data sig. And
Me too. And it's the right thing to say. It was referenced two different things, and it kept the name of one of them, but it took a lot of others from the other stuff. So in terms of you'd ask what.
Like how does BTC become the go-to place for BCHs, for new people to crypto as they come in, for young people? Honestly, if you're 15 years old and you're thinking, shit, I'm gonna want to make this the industry that I'm going to be a part of. How do you win that battle?
We need a dog meme. I could tell you my brother is into Doge, even though I'm a Selene wallet developer. He knows all about BCH, but he's still getting Dogecoin. And I feel like a lot of young people are in that boat. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's all good. I think in some ways Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash are in the same boat there, which is the UX of actually using them for real exchange is hard. The apps on both leave a lot to be desired when you go to I want to use this in my everyday life to receive payments as a merchant or to spend money as a purchaser. They both aren't where they need to be because of security issues, because of liquidity issues if you're using Lightning. That's part of the reason I'm so enthusiastic about Arc. I think Arc provides a remarkably good set of trade-offs in terms of the the user experience and then the recoverability. I don't know if you guys know this, as you're kind of newer to learning about Arc, but Arc has this property where your VTXOs time out. And a lot of Bitcoiners, they hear that and they're like, they time out. That's bad. I lose custody of my coins.
That's where I'm at right now.
But hold on a second.
That's an opportunity.
How do most people lose their coins? It's not because the custodian
losing their
They lose the
seed.
fucking keys.
Yeah.
So Arc has this timeout where if you have your keys, you have to come online once every couple of weeks to sweep your funds over to a new Arc, and you have custody always. But if you lose your keys, the Arc pool operator takes custody, just like any other custodian, and issues you eCash. And then you can swap that back in for new VTXO when you get new keys.
Oh, okay.
Right? So this is a good situation that for the average user, not us, but the average user, Arc is a better form of custody because they have a stopgap where they lose their keys, but they don't lose the money when they lose their keys.
I mean, we can emulate that sort of functionality with cash tokens, I'm sure, which is an interesting idea. Maybe we should think about that. It's a powerful idea. What if we built that into Selene, that just, you have your BCH and it automatically flicks itself over, but then if you lose your keys after a certain amount of time, it I don't know, whatever, burns those coins and reissues them as
I kind of feel like it's an application layer problem more than a protocol layer problem. Because, I mean, we can do things like social recovery or Shamir sharing, where you split your key into pieces and, okay, I've got my 1 or 2 pieces and you've got 1 piece and Jet's got 1 piece. And if I lose 1 or both of my pieces, like, you guys can help me recover my funds still. But you can't rug me.
Yes.
Because I have 2 pieces and you only have 1.
Yes.
So I don't know.
Has anyone here ever lost a seed phrase or lost a private key or like?
I've had it stolen. Yeah,
No, I mean-
that's a different case, but
I personally haven't. But
I think I have, but I can't prove it. I think in the very early days of Bitcoin, I GPU mined a block, and then I've forgot about Bitcoin for 2 years. But I don't know that I mined that block. I can't prove that in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So I think I lost a seed phrase and lost a mining reward from the early days.
Yeah, I lied. I actually have a wallet.dat in one of my ancient computer backups because I was in Bitcoin in 2011, and I have 0.005 BTC from a faucet that I do not know the password to unlock that wallet.
I might actually have some faucet coins. Well, I mean, long gone now. But I never even, I was going to be like, I've never lost any.
No, I have lost a wallet probably. Yeah, well, it's not lost. I just don't know that. I could probably brute force the password, but
the password should be brute forceable. Do we head over to the dinner soon, or?
Yeah, we got to
I don't even know what
we
time
got to
it is.
wrap up. How long have we been going? We've been going for an hour and a half to it.
That's
that
a
might be
podcast.
that might be about it. Any last minute questions or anything we had that we could just quickly touch on? I am pretty hungry actually. So.
We had one that was high as this live, but
Answered that question yourself, yeah.
and then so BCH sounds like early Bitcoin situation, good design but lack of eyes. ...
Yes.
Yeah. I'd say there's I would say a couple years ago we were a lot like 2013 Bitcoin, and now I would say we're getting closer to like 2015 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
We had the rebuild. I mean, it's, like I've said a couple times now, the chain split caused a lot of trauma for everybody, and it set us back. Read hijacking Bitcoin. I don't know.
I actually had a conversation with a Bitcoin developer. I can't remember who it was, maybe 2 weeks ago now. And they're basically like, I don't think the Bitcoin Cash guys have any idea what they're doing. And I'm like, have you looked at it in the last 2 years? Because it's a completely different situation than it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
And talking to you guys, I mean, that's obvious. So yeah, it's very true. And I think it's frankly true, on the Bitcoin side too. You guys have probably rebuilt faster for a variety of reasons, partially because you got smaller and smaller
exactly.
comes back faster.
Yeah, it's easy,
and so Bitcoin is still figuring out what forward progress looks like after the trauma of the chain split.
Yes.
I do really think there is a lot of information asymmetry there. We're still experiencing this. We've been experiencing it online for ages. I think we're experiencing it even in this room. People are simply unaware of how far we've come and where we're at now. They still think that we're the same chain that we were in 2017 or the same chain that we were post Craig Wright or even post Amari.
So some people don't even know.
Yeah, so some people don't even know if they're gone. Yeah. So let alone knowing about our upgrades that we've been shipping consistently since then, let alone seeing what our wallet ecosystem looks like now. For instance, have you managed to try the latest version of Celine Wallet?
I have not.
And so going to your point about UX, this is exactly what we're building. We're trying to build the UX that is normie proof.
Nice.
You know, we want to have that wow experience of magic internet money where it's super simple and it looks great and it feels great. That's what we're trying to build.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll wrap up in just a minute, but any final thoughts, I guess? Callisti, you're first on day one and going into day two.
It's been a great conference. Shout out to Charlie. Thanks to the Taproot Wizards who are about to feed us dinner. Thanks for Reardon for coming on and talking. I really love talking to you, man.
Yeah, man.
I also want to give a shout out to Lop. I want to give a shout out to James O.B. I know is here and has been paying attention to BCH. And just everyone else who's been curious to find out what we're doing. I'm glad that we have the opportunity to be here, that it's been friendly, and that we've been able to just have this kind of cross collaboration going on. Thanks to Jeremy also for doing this, and it's thanks to him that I'm even here right now, because he just had this idea, hey, let's just go. And so we're here, and I'm glad that we did this.
Well, that's why I said to Charlie, like, it's really to his credit and the Blockspace Media guys for hosting all this, which is that this is the kind of event that I felt would be worth coming to. You know, obviously it's not necessarily that easy to do in terms of, you know, getting all the cash together, getting everyone organized, coming along. But I've been, very happy with my value for money so far. And, you know, we'll see. It's putting me in an interesting state of mind with regards to a future, you know, BTC conferences. We'll see how things, you know, play out. Like, you know, would I come back next year? I mean, yeah, probably. But it will depend, you know, what's on the agenda and how things have changed between then and now. Really, any final thoughts?
My final thoughts are, frankly, to echo what both of you guys said, that these conferences, the first Up Next and this one, I think Charlie and Blockspace Media have done a remarkable job in bringing together people with different perspectives into the same place.
Yes.
Both within the Bitcoin community and bringing in Bitcoin Cash community as well. I'm amazed at how they do it. Like, they've got, you know,
they didn't know we were going to be here. Like,
but they put on an event where you wanted to come, and that,
very true.
It's really been remarkable, because they've got people that are at the last conference. We had more Ossifier presence than this one, but they brought the Taproot Wizards and Ossifiers into the same house. You know, so kudos to them. It's a great event, and I look forward to tomorrow.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, I guess that will do it. Thanks for being on the stream with us. Hopefully everybody has enjoyed this broadcast, and we'll follow up maybe with those polls. I love that idea. We can chuck that in the chat right now and see what happens.
Are we doing another stream tomorrow?
Good question. I don't know. Maybe.
More speakers.
I feel like we should do a day 2 debrief
as well. Yeah. Okay. All right.
I would mind even having this stuff set up like during this talking, so like after the.
I mean, now that we're a little more friendly with the host, maybe we can see what they'd be okay with.
We can just do an all day, like the side stream, like the big couch.
I mean, we can always do these kind of side conversations and see if people want to.
Well, I want to actually see the talks as well. I want to actually see the talks. Like, come on.
Get a TV back here of what's happening.
The live reaction.
It's live stream. It's watching your phone.
Yeah.
Oh, that is true.
Well, I don't know. Anyway, we'll workshop something. Let's get some food and get drunk. All right. That's it. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you later. Bye.
Otra noche sin ti, otra noche bebiendo solo. ¿Dónde fue que perdí mi orgullo para sentir que quiero hablarte? Miro mi cel y solo quiero llamarte. Ayer me fui de fiesta para olvidarte y no pensar